Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy. The Meccan Revelations, part 39, in which I will pick up right where BT left off last time. And we're at the beginning of a new section. It's always nice to start a new section. You know, there's like infinite potential. I mean, maybe not infinite, but maybe infinite. No, not infinite. No. There's 26 letters in the Latin alphabet. And however you arrange them, there may be a lot of different possible things that could be written on a bunch of pages, but it's not infinite. But still, how's everybody doing? You doing well? You doing good? Yeah, well, anyway, I guess the incense is next. Oh, and we'll do some Hafiz poetry. I like doing those at the beginning because sometimes the Ibn Arabi can be heady. I'll just say that. And the Hafiz is hearty. Ooh, not hearty like, oh, that's a hearty breakfast you got there, boy. Or, whatever. This smells good. It's open, so I guess I've burned it before. I'm going to burn two. Oh, two. I've clearly gotten over the novelty of this packaging because I didn't show it off to you as I was opening it. See? So cool. Next time you're in Goa, keep an eye out at the grocery store in the Islamic incense section for this packaging. It's in a separate place from the rest of the incense. I mean, at Newton. I don't know how every store does it. You hear that sound? That's a sound called I took the battery out of the cat. Those of you who are keeping up with Secret of the Golden Flower will understand what I mean by that. And everyone else, well, you're just missing out. You better check out Secret of the Golden Flower. Then you can catch all these little references. Never mind. I'm going to go ahead and share something because the hat's on. So, obviously when the shit hit the fan in October of last year, for a nanosecond, the world forgot everything. They forgot about history. And were on the side of the occupiers, And then they retaliated, and it was like, okay, well, 2,000 for 2,000. All right, yeah. Oh, 10,000. You're up to 40,000, 60,000, 60,000. Children. Oh, those are just the children. Okay. And so at a certain point, most people were like, maybe stop that. Stop doing that, And here I live in India. And I'll just say I'm not saying anything about the government because I really shouldn't do that for reasons. But the individual people, it didn't come up much in conversation. But when it did, it was in the form of older men wanting to connect with me, hearing that I'm American, and thinking, oh, I have a conversation starter that I can use on this American, and saying, man, those poor guys having to deal with those Muslims, those people think differently. And I'm like, and I was in a position where the guy that was saying this to me was helping me out with something I really needed help with to live in India. And so I was, at that time I managed to spin it and say, well, if you really want to blame somebody for the problems over there, blame the British. And he was very happy to have me redirect. Let's just talk shit about the British for a while. And then we had a good time talking shit about the British. I drew a few parallels that, at least for the sake of the conversation, he nodded along with, about how drawing a partition. Anyway, long story short, the other time that it came up, so that was with an older man who happened to be Hindu and up north in Delhi area. And then here down in Goa, there's a Catholic older man who, after the election this year, was announced, the results were announced, he was like, oh yeah, I heard Donald Trump is going to be president. And I'm like, what makes you think that why would you assume, why would you walk up to somebody and think that based on their nationality that you can guess their affiliation with it? Okay, whatever, and so I'm like, okay, he just doesn't understand. He just, but then he's like, what's he going to do about Israel? And I was like, well, I was kind of testing the waters, like, where are you going with this question? Like, and so I said, well, I'm sure he's going to help them to blow up all their neighbors, and make a big crater out of the entire Middle East. He's already kind of promised to do that. And he said, well, it's necessary, and I was like, fuck, all right. So I kind of was left with this impression. And so I had a couple of friends in America that were like, so what do people in India, what do they think of it all? And I'm like, don't even ask. Oh my God, it's the worst. It's just the worst. It's worse than your most terrible uncle's take on things. But then, the algorithm showed me this Indian comedian right here.
Who would have thought that the same man who brought so much of pain and suffering and death to the Jewish community would come back reincarnated as their prime minister?
Wow, that's a bit much. But he does backtrack. He does reel it in a little bit.
I just want to let you know, it's not okay to think like this. Okay, so shame on all of you. It is not okay to blame every Jewish person in the world for the actions of the Israeli government or the IDF. That's like blaming every Muslim person in the world for the actions of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And we have never done that.
So anyway, yeah, that's Daniel Fernandez, if I recall correctly. Here's his channel. Subscribe, check him out. You might be thinking, Daniel Fernandez, that doesn't sound like a very Indian name. That's why I'm guessing he's from Goa, because they tend to have very Portuguese names here in Goa. So thank you, Daniel Fernandez, for reinstilling my faith in India and the hearts and common sense in general of people. There's 1.4 billion people, of which I don't know what the percentage is that are aware of what's going on, and of which I don't know what the percentage is. There's like some 250 million Muslims here. I think that the percentages of their opinion on that situation is probably going to be a little different from the other 1.15 billion. But anyway, I just wanted to share that and apologize for bringing it up. But occasionally I do bring that up. And anyway, I was relieved to hear Daniel's perspective on things, as it's a little bit closer to my own. All right, here we go. Bibliomancy. I'm going to try to, okay. Sometimes it's like the book automatically stops me at places that I've already opened before, and so it ends up being something. Oh, this looks interesting, I can already tell, even without eyes. Who can hear the Buddha sing? Okay, so this is Hafiz, Persian, Sufi, Islamic mystic, poet in the 1300s, writing a poem called Who Can Hear the Buddha Sing? Hafiz, tonight, as you sit with your young students, who have eyes burning like coals for the truth, raise your glass in honor of the old great one from Asia. I will raise my glass as well. Notice it says hope, as in I hope I don't run out of coffee during this episode. It's very large. Anyway, raise a glass. Oh, I need extra arms, like the goddess here. Regular viewers know which goddess is here. Where were we? Speak in the beautiful style and precision wit of a Japanese verse. Sufi poet knows about Japanese poetry. Worldly 14th century Persians. Say a profound truth about this path with the edge of your sailor's tongue that has been honed on the finest sake. This guy knows what he's talking about right now. Okay, dear ones, are you ready? Are you braced? Well then, who can hear the Buddha sing if that dog between your legs is barking? Who can hear the Buddha sing if that canine between your thighs still wants to do circus tricks? The last word is its own line. Tricks. No question mark. I like it. Hafiz, I like it. What do you do when you're a beatnik hearing a poem? Everybody snaps, right? Isn't that... Somebody told me that. I don't know if it's true. All right. Well, let's get to today's reading. Is there anything else? No. I guess I'll take a sip of my hope. There is still hope. I guess. I don't know. All right. Let's hit it. On withdrawal. China, Israel. Maybe you should think about withdrawing from a couple of places. Sorry. Tibetan. Well, a lot of... I'll just keep going. This is one of the 99 chapters that make up section 3 of the Futuhat on the, quote, bracket parentheses, spiritual, end bracket parentheses, states, end quote. The term Takhali is the 5th verbal form of the root kh.l.w. from which also comes Kalwa, or, quote, bracket parentheses, spiritual, end bracket parentheses, retreat, end quote. The root meaning is to be empty or vacant, hence, quote, withdrawal, end quote, signifies entering into a retreat, or more literally, to empty one's self, i.e. of that which distracts from God, and ultimately of everything other than God. I think Daniel Fernandez had a bit about withdrawal, didn't he?
Just do yourself a favor and pull out.
Yeah, that was what. What? Withdrawal is often discussed along with two rhyming terms, tahali, or, quote, adornment, end quote, and tajali, or, quote, theophany. End quote. Editor Edward, remind us of the exact definition of theophany. Theophany, a visible manifestation to humankind of God. Isn't it cool? When you put theo at the beginning of a word, sometimes it can be a really good word. Other times it can be a really bad word. Like when you put it at the beginning of cracky, theocracky, theocracy. Where were we? The subjects of chapters 204 and 206 Ibn al-Arabi says that the Sufis generally define adornment as, quote, making one's states similar to those who are truthful in word and deed, end quote. Whereas in his own view, it is, quote, to take on the embellishment of the divine names as defined by the law, end quote. He relates withdrawal to theophany by saying, quote, withdrawal is close to, is to choose the retreat and to turn away from everything that distracts from God in seeking theophany, comma, which is the unseen lights that are unveiled to hearts, end quote. The spiritual retreat to which Ibn al-Arabi devotes chapters 78 and 79 is one of the mainstays of Sufi practice. The purpose of making retreats is, quote, to empty the heart from thoughts connected to the various parts of engendered existence and actualized through directing the senses towards sensory objects. The treasury of the imagination becomes filled, bracket parentheses, with images derived from the sensory world, end bracket parentheses. Don't you hate it when that happens? Leave my imagination alone, you images from the sensory world. Sorry. And the form-giving faculty then chooses out those forms with which it is enamored. Then these forms act as a barrier between the person and the divine level. Oh. So if you walk around, right, and you're looking at stuff, and you see a squirrel, and you're like, oh my God, that squirrel. Wow, that squirrel, man. It's so good. And then when you close your eyes, you imagine and visualize scenarios with that squirrel. That phenomenon keeps you distant from God. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I think actually a lot of like different things could be put in the squirrel. I don't mean things put in the squirrel, obviously, but I mean like the squirrel could fill in. I don't mean the squirrel could fill in. You know what I mean? Like the squirrel could be a metaphor for, the obvious, and other things that are maybe less obvious. Imagining the forms that you've sucked in through your senses and the ones that you've chosen to prefer over the others. I don't know, like some paths would say that like that's a way to honor God, that's a way to experience God. You can process all the way through and blow out the other side. Not blow out the other side, obviously, like leave the squirrel intact. Don't touch the squirrel. Just let the squirrel be. Anyway. What? Yes. Hence the bracket parentheses spiritual traveler and bracket parentheses inclines toward retreats and toward invocations in praise of him, quote, in whose hand is the dominion, end quote. With a capital D, because that's its name. Watch out, squirrel! The dominion is coming. Edward, stop. Gwydion, what are you doing here? It's unnecessary. Just read it, okay? All right. Sorry. Then, when the soul becomes purified, and the veil of nature that stands between him and the world of the dominion is lifted, all the sciences imprinted within the forms of the world of the dominion come to be reflected in the mirror of the soul. End quote. So if the squirrel is a lady and the dominion is a wiener, what's the mirror of the soul? I guess that's your phone, right? It's probably your phone. It's, hi, I'm your soul reflected back at you. What? No, it's not your phone. I'll just keep reading. Sorry. Once the veil has been lifted, the traveler has no more need of retreats. Did I read this already? No. Quote, the retreat is only correct for him who is veiled, as for the people of unveiling. The retreat is never correct for them, since they contemplate the higher spirits. Steve Gutenberg, Daryl Hannah, Peter O'Toole. It's a good movie. And the fiery spirits, and see the engendered things speaking. End quote. So when you think of engendered things speaking, I mean, created things that have an origin speaking. Technically, I'm an engendered thing speaking right now, if you know what I'm saying. For Ibn al-Arabi, the retreat is a necessary stage on the path, but the elect will eventually reach the point where there will be no difference for them between being in a retreat and being in, quote, society, end quote. Society. It's even better in quotes. We live in a society, right, Joker? Or Mr. Robot, or whatever. Jalwa, literally the unveiling of a bride. Yeah, that's apocalypse means the unveiling of a bride. But defined technically as leaving the retreat, and closely connected in meaning to theophany, which is derived from the same root, end parentheses. In discussing withdrawal, Ibn al-Arabi follows his usual pattern of referring to a term's outward meaning, and then pointing out the root phenomenon in the divine things. Withdrawal is not retreat from the everyday world to God, but from our mistaken perception that our existence is real, to the true knowledge that we have no existence and that being belongs to God alone. Yeah. But if you truly absorb the information that the only existent one is God, then you would become more of a Vedanta than a monotheist. I mean, are Vedantins monotheists? I would say no. I mean, you know Vedanta, that's the Heart of Awareness. Go watch all 4 episodes of Heart of Awareness and then come back. All right, welcome back. Congratulations on finishing, what was that? It had to be at least 2 hours, 4 episodes, half hour a pop. I'm assuming some of them were more than a half an hour. Anyway, it's a good series though, isn't it? I enjoyed it. What were we talking about? Right. It just seems like a basic, weird math thing where it's like the only thing that exists, the only existence is God. And so if somebody says, well, I exist, therefore I'm God. No, that's blasphemy. That's where it kind of gets confusing. Like, what? Anyway, no, you're the little I. Why? What if I use a big I? What? We do use a big I. We capitalize I when we say I, right? How do you say the really big I? I, existence itself. I, the individual soul who is reincarnated hundreds of thousands of times. I, the little ego that gradually formed when this particular incarnation was approximately 2 or 3 years old, and me, and I've got my little traumas, and I've got my little things from this life. And then there's an even smaller me, which we call domination, right? Was that what it was called? Dominion, excuse me. Or max headroom, for those who are paying attention. Obviously, I'm just joking. Is it joking? I don't know what it is. Sometimes it just... Okay, phenomena in discussing withdrawal. I don't know. What? Okay. Yeah, there is nothing other than God. Existence is real. All right. The subject of the chapter is not so much the spiritual state of withdrawal, which is to leave aside everything that distracts from God as the root of this spiritual state and the oneness of being. There is nothing other than God, since none possesses being but He. The things or entities remain eternally non-existent. Oh, so you and I are non-existent. I mean, kind of. I mean, temporal, yeah. If you pan out, like if you zoom out, you ever zoom out? If you zoom in like this, so you zoom out like this, or like that, zoom out. If you zoom out far enough, then your size as a 7-foot ball of meat, or whatever Dogen calls a human, the 7 feet of bones and of flesh and bones. He has a nice phrase he uses. Or the 80 years, or, rounding up. 8 feet and a century. How big is a century when you do this long enough? And you see like the earth from a ball of volcano to something being melted by the red giant sun, and you see that as this long. And how long is a century? Or half a century? Yeah. Basically non-existent. So in that sense, I could see that Gwydion, Edward, whoever, is basically non-existent, but not completely non-existent. And the part, what he seems to be saying is the existent part, that part of you that, thinks you exist, that's God. See where the math gets a little funny to me? I mean, like the need to have blasphemy and heresy and orthodoxy and all these stringent who has the essence, who's got the real prophecy, what's the real lineage, all starts to kind of fall into that realm of even less real than the unreal, Because if my whole life, with everything I dream, imagine, experience, who's the one imagining if I'm non-existent? That existence is actually something. What the fuck is lineage, Anyway, sorry. Keep going. Hafiz gets it. But what's the barking dog between the thighs? He was kind of frisky today. Anyway, back to Ibn Arabi. Where were we? Engendered things speaking. We read that already. The true situation. We haven't read that yet. Okay. There is nothing other than God, since possessing... Right. The things or entities remain eternally non-existent. They cannot, quote, acquire existence, end quote, as the philosophers maintain. Yes. Because, quote, realities do not change, end quote. All right. What appears to be the acquisition of existence by the things is in fact God. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Disclosing himself to us under the guise of his name, the, quote, manifest, end quote. So the part of you that's looking out, that's hearing the words, that's experiencing this moment, passing like a river in ongoing now, from the unexperienceable future to the only remembered as a reflection past in this moment. The existence of the being here now is God. So what is the non-existent? All the other stuff? What other stuff? There is no other stuff. Do you mean all the forms and shades and shadows and colors and things and all the particulars and the temporal shit? I'm confused. I mean, it's fine. We haven't gotten to the Ibn Arabi yet. This is all just the introduction. Though his self-disclosure is colored by the properties and effects of the things, thus it is impossible to, quote, withdraw, end quote, from acquired existence, since none has been acquired. The spiritual traveler must withdraw from his ignorance of the true situation. Were it not for the levels set down in the law, God's realities would not become manifest, though the entities give witness to him. Oh, this is a quote from Ibn Arabi. He just suddenly jumped in. Yeah, okay. The introduction is over and we're now reading the translation, but there was no warning. Okay. We're reading the translation now. Gotta switch. Okay, Ibn Arabi, translated into English. Are you ready? Were it not for the levels set down in the law, God's realities would not become manifest, though the entities give witness to him, the non-existent entities. Well, what's the use in that? Sorry. The voices in my head are all clamoring, saying, "Oh, he's so hot," about me. Never mind. How should there be, quote, withdrawal, end quote? I'll show you. For there is no one in engendered existence to save him, with a capital H. And he, with a capital H, it is whom we worship in engendered existence. This prevents us from delimiting him, so sometimes we make him non-existent, and sometimes we bring him into existence. For according to our creeds, God brings every accident in engendered existence into existence. All right. So if you possess an eye and true knowledge, contemplate him in all things, and in the fact that things fail to find him. Know, K-N-O-W, that for the tribe, quote, withdrawal, end quote, is to choose the retreat and to turn away from everything that distracts from God. But for us, withdrawal takes place in relation to acquired existence. Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. Sorry. Since the creed holds this to be so, I would count the creed as a form of acquired existence you should withdraw from, which might make me a little bit of a heretic, but sorry. Yes, and in reality there is none but true being, with a capital T and a capital B. That which is described as having acquired existence remains with its root, called dominion. It does not pass from its possible existence. Its property, bracket parentheses, of non-existence, and bracket parentheses, remains, while its entity is immutable. God is witness, and witnessed. For it is not proper that he should swear by that which is not he. since that by which he swears must possess tremendousness. Hence he did not swear by anything that is not he. We have mentioned this in the chapter on breath. Among the things by which he has sworn are, bracket parentheses, those things mentioned in the verse and bracket parentheses, quote, by a witness and a witnessed, end quote, Quran 85:3. So he is the witness and the witnessed. And he is that which acquires existence, or rather, he is existent. If you ask, who then is ignorant of this, that you should teach him about it? For only that which is existent can be given knowledge. We reply, your question is answered by your own creed, since you have faith that he said to the thing, quote, be, end quote. He only addresses and commands that which hears, yet you hold that it has no existence when it is addressed. So that which has no existence is able to hear. Hence, it is he who teaches the thing what it does not know, and it comes to know it in the state of its non-existence. It receives teaching, just as, according to you, it hears God's address and then receives engendered existence. But in our view, contrary to your view, this is not its receiving engendered existence. Its, quote, receiving engendered existence, end quote, is that it becomes a locus of manifestation for God. This is the meaning of, quote, and it is, end quote, Quran 36:82. This does not mean that it acquires existence. It only acquires the property of being a locus of manifestation. So it can be taught, just as it can hear. There is no difference. Sometimes it's better to read something that barely makes sense and wonder if it's supposed to make sense or if it makes sense to anyone else, rather than read something that makes sense and makes you want to pull out your hair. Sometimes. And so today was a success in that we're grading on the curve, and lately we've run into at least one or two things that made sense and were infuriating. So it is a nice break to take, to read something that makes a little less sense, but also makes you kind of go, and prompts thoughts, thought processes, rivers of thought, little streams of thought that are kind of related or around the words. That's nice. That's a nice thing to happen, isn't it? Well, that is where I've decided we're going to close today. It's not the end of a section. There's still a bit left of this. Hell. There's only a page and a half left of this section. All right. We're going to finish the section. If you have paid attention and understood, I have apprised you of something tremendous. He is identical to all things in manifestation. Are we supposed to take that literally? No one's going to cut off our heads? Oh, wait, it's 2024. Oh, thank goodness. I thought we were in Damascus in 1100 something. Speaking of Syria, some news lately. Anyway, the guy was like, well, yeah, I was in Al-Qaeda, but it was a phase. It was, young people go through different phases, but now I'm all about the Gandhi. And, well, we'll see. We'll just have to see how things pan out over there. Okay. What are we reading? What? Who? Yes. But not identical to them. He is identical. He is identical to all things in manifestation, but not identical to them in their essences. Glory be to him, and high exalted is he, bracket parentheses, above that, end bracket parentheses, exclamation point. No, he is he, and the things are the things. But when you see the properties of certain loci of manifestation in the manifest, you imagine that their entities have become qualified by, quote, acquired existence, end quote. Then, when we came to know that among the possible entities, there are people who are in this manner ignorant of the situation. I mean, I'm reading this, I'm more ignorant than I was before I started reading. If I'm being honest, it became incumbent upon us, though we remain immutable in our state of non-existence, to teach the real situation to those of our fellow humans who do not know it. This is all the more so, since we are qualified as being a locus of manifestation, and we have been given the power throughout this relation to teach him who does not know. Hence we gave him what he does not have, and he accepted it. Among the things I have taught him is that by being a locus of manifestation, he does not acquire existence. So he, quote, withdrew, end quote, from this belief, not from acquired existence, since there is none. That is why, in bracket parentheses, the discussion of, end bracket parentheses, withdrawal, we have turned away from bracket parentheses, the position, and bracket parentheses, which position is that? That it is withdrawal from acquired existence. Oh. Thought maybe it was. Those people of wayfaring, without knowledge of this, not knowing who is the manifest and the witnessed and who is the world, have chosen retreat in order to be isolated with God. Since the manyness witnessed in existence veils them from God, they have inclined to withdrawal, bracket parentheses, through retreat, and bracket parentheses. This is one of the things that should show you that they have not renounced things in respect of the forms of the things, squirrel. For they are not able to do that. In their retreat, they must witness forms. In it, they do not withdraw from the walls, door, roof, and furnishings, which make up the retreat room, nor from carpet and curtain, food and drink. So take that, Bodhidharma. No. So the person in retreat is not able to withdraw from form. There only remains that he has fled from the comprehensible speech that arises from forms, not from acts with a capital A. Do you mean the book in the New Testament? No, of course not, Gwydion. I.e., created things. Oh, and bracket parentheses. If there were animals with him, he would still be in retreat and would not be distracted from his purpose, his special purpose. The jerk. Steve Martin, 1970. I say because I don't know exactly what year it was. But a lot of it was filmed in Sierra Madre, where I was born. Little town tucked up between Pasadena and Arcadia, up against the foot of the hills, you might say. The foothills, up against the Angeles Crest Mountains. This the bottom of the Sierra Nevada. Never mind. Withdraw from the walls so the person would treat animals. What? If there were animals, his special purpose. Right, the jerk. He would not be distracted from his purpose unless he feared being harmed by them. In a similar way, bracket parentheses, he would be distracted from his purpose and bracket parentheses if the walls were leaning, for he would fear that they might fall on him. Hence he sought out withdrawal only because of the words that people speak. But if he were to understand the words that people speak in the mode in which God places them within them, his knowledge would increase through something that he had not known. If someone were to pray a single prayer, I mean a single cycle, the person in retreat would not seek withdrawal from it, for when he hears the servant, parentheses, performing the prayer, end parentheses, say, quote, God hears him who praises him, end quote, and bracket parentheses knows, end bracket parentheses, that these are the words of God, then reality permeates everything he hears. I saw a funny YouTube. I mean, sometimes I just see the thumbnail and the title, and this guy looking very serious, and it says, proof that the Quran is man-made. Oh, as opposed to what? The Old and New Testament, which aren't man-made? Okay, all right. Have fun there, you little... Sorry. Yes, the Nag Hammadi is the only true word of God. I'm not going to say I'm just kidding. I'm going to let you wonder. Of course I'm being serious. All right, sorry. Yeah, no, it's the words of God. Then reality permeates everything he hears. Dogen once said, if you know how to listen, you can hear the sutras in the sounds made by the river. He said something, words to that effect. I like Dogen a lot better than... in a lot of cases, better than the Buddha. I like the Buddha in Dogen's head, best of all Buddhas. At this stage in life, at this moment. Ask me again in a year, my answer might be different. Okay. What? Hence, everything that people say imparts knowledge of God to the knowers. That is why one of his charismatic gifts of the wholesome is that God allows them to hear the speech of things. If this did not impart knowledge to them, it would not be a gift from God to them. For him whom God has given understanding, retreat, and society, not in quotes, are the same. Retreat and society are the same. I used to groove with that. Yeah, especially after like a really intense Thoth invocation. You go to the mall and walk around like, there's no difference between this and a cave. You know, like it's a pretty cool space to be in. What? Yeah. Rather, it may be that society is more complete for a person and greater in benefit, since through it at every instant he increases in sciences about God that he did not possess. Isn't that basically what Carl Jung was saying to that monk in the wilderness in Libya? If you're keeping up with the black books. If not, check out the black books. That's good. I'm not sure who I'm talking to when I say that. I think, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's safe to say Meccan Revelation and Martin Luther are the two least watched series on chicken philosophy. I wonder if there's anybody watching Meccan Revelations only and not watching any of the other series. I would tend to doubt it. Anyway, feel free to say hi in the comments below. And all right, that's today's reading. And I will go ahead and say cheers. And I guess that's it.